Hi everybody, I'm Lucy here from Sleep Nanny Official, and I'm here doing a takeover for Fit&Well.com, and I'm just going to make sure my settings are right here. Yeah, I think they are. Good, awesome. And so yeah, I'm here today to help you, to give you any tips you might need and to give you a steer really on how to help your babies and toddlers to sleep through the night. I know, it's the most talked about topic amongst parents, and if you're here, you're obviously somebody who cares about your health and your fitness and your well-being, and perhaps that's being a little bit impaired by the little people in our lives, because they do love to wake us up, and it doesn't actually just impact our lives, it impacts theirs as well, their development, their well-being, as well as ours. And actually you can set them up for a really good start and a really healthy future just by getting sleep in check when they're little. And we've even had studies show that their development can be impacted around age 6. We can see a difference if they weren't sleeping well when they were about 2.5. So it does matter. It really makes a big difference to all of the family. And I'm here to help you to overcome that problem if it's something that you're struggling with, or maybe it isn't yet, but it might be. So you can tool up, learn the tips and the tricks, and then you'll be fully equipped and ready to tackle anything that comes your way with your little one's sleep. So, right, making sure that I've covered everything. So, first of all, you want to know who I am, probably. If you haven't been following me on Sleep Nanny Official, I'm Lucy Shrimpton, founder of the Sleep Nanny, creator of the best-selling book, The Sleep Nanny System, and the Dream Maker Sleep Program. I also train people to become sleep consultants through Sleep Nanny Academy, and so I'm very much about educating people around the topic of sleep, which ultimately is to serve the big vision of being able to help families live healthier and happier lives through healthy sleep. It all starts with sleep at the end of the day. You know, you love to work out, keep fit, you need your sleep. Everything starts with sleep. So what can you do if you have a little one who's not sleeping as well as perhaps they could be? And you know it could be better, but you're just not sure how. How do you help them sleep longer? How do you stop them waking up throughout the night? How do you help them to nap for longer stretches and not take these annoying little cat naps? How do you stop them being just exhausted and miserable? And it's depressing. It causes depression. I'm going to start with I want to give you some simple tips that hopefully there's something in this for everyone. So the first and most important thing that you can do, which you can do from day one, so whatever age your child is, whether they are newborn or age 7, it really doesn't matter, right from the get-go, is consider the sleep environment. What do I mean by that? The room that your little one sleeps in. So, and especially for babies and toddlers, they are working to a body clock, a circadian rhythm, and if we don't help that along, it can get off track. And especially at this time of year in the UK and other parts of the world, we're having our particularly lightest months of the year right now. I mean, we're getting up close to the longest day, and that means it's light very, very early in the morning and it's light until very late at night. I mean, at the moment it's light till nearly 10 o'clock at night. It's very light. And whilst you or I might be okay with that, may be able to sleep in that environment, for little ones it can be challenging. And not only that, it's not sending the right messages to the brain. So it's impacting their ability to sleep better. It's just one of those things. It's let's just rule this one out and get the environment right. So light, how can you do that? Well, blackout blinds are great, and I recommend blackout blinds followed by blackout curtains followed by tucking them in, and literally every little trick in the book that you can do to black out all the natural daylight. Why? Because daylight is a type of blue light, like screen light and bright fluorescent lights. They're all blue light, and what that actually does is it sends signals to the brain that you need to be awake. It suppresses the brain's ability to produce melatonin, which is the hormone that promotes sleep, and so all in all, it's hindering the little one's ability to go to sleep in the first place. Now you might say maybe you've got a toddler who is a little trickster at bedtime and is trying all these different antics, and you'll think, well, the light doesn't make a difference. I mean, I'm getting this request and this thing going on, and it could be all sorts of behavioural type things, and you're thinking, what difference will the light make? it's a good start. Okay, so let's get the light right. Temperature is another one. You don't want it too hot or too cold. Somewhere between, well, actually around 18 degrees is centigrade is spot on for a sleep environment. Certainly you don't want it more than 20 degrees, and that can be tricky in the warmer months, especially when we don't have air conditioned homes. So consider things you can do to cool the room down if it is too hot. Dressing your little one appropriately. So babies, you know, they can't control their bed covers or anything like that. So sleep sacks are great. In the warm weather, a low tog is good. If it's cold, you know, little socks or little, sleep suits with the mittens can help to stop the extremities getting cold in the colder weather. So all those sort of things you need to consider in terms of their comfortability in the temperature. So you've got light, you've got temperature, and you've got noise. That's another one, the sound. Whilst typically we like the idea of quiet for sleep, and I do promote that, by the way, complete and utter silence can almost be a bit weird. Especially for young babies who in the womb, it was all sounds, white noise sounds, you know, there's always sound going on. It's not silent in there. So to go into an environment that is completely still and silent and all these things is quite weird for a baby. So white noise is a great soother. What is white noise? White noise is a consistent, steady noise, like radio white noise is the best example, or like a running shower. The noise of shower running is a great example of white noise. It's consistent. It's not sporadic like rainforests or whale sounds. As beautiful as those are, they are inconsistent. They vary. They come up and down. You want something that's steady, straight, consistent. They say 7 decibels, but what does that mean to you and I? So let's say about the volume of the shower, if you were stood next to a shower running, is about the volume. You don't want this sort of thing right in your baby's ear, but if it's in the room, it can be soothing. Now, this can be particularly helpful if you live on a busy street. Perhaps you need the window crack for some air. Maybe there's road noise, sporadic random noises like a dog bark or a siren that goes off, those one-off random noises that wake a baby, or even just clattering in the kitchen if you're cooking or whatever, that can disturb a little one. If they've got that consistent white noise there, that can help drown out and dull any of those sounds, making it easier for them to settle to sleep. So I say this because it can be so easily overlooked to just get that sleep environment set up right in the first place. And so I can go into all the behavioural strategies to overcome toddler tantrums and all these other things. But if the environment's not right, then we've got to get that base right first. So let's assume we've ticked all the boxes and we have the perfect sleep environment for our little one. What's next? A bedtime routine. And I know that sounds obvious, but what does that actually look like? A bedtime routine is going to help trigger a baby that bedtime's coming, that is nighttime now. It's triggers and cues, and especially with young babies, you can set up these sorts of triggers and cues from just a couple of weeks old. So if you're a new parent and you're looking at what can I do right now, you can just do these tiny little things just to set things up and just to give them just little clues, really. And the beautiful thing about the bedtime routine is it's the only time in 24 hours that's going to look like this. So it could include, for example, bathroom time. And I say bathroom time because not every child is going to need to actually have a bath every night. It may be that they just have a little wash. It may be a baby who's just having a quick little wash. It may be a toddler who's right through to the stages of doing their teeth and everything. So bathroom time. But bathroom time like that only happens at one point in the day. So it's the beginning of the routine. It's the cue, like, we're going here now. And the other lovely thing about it, and this is great for toddlers, is if they've had a busy day and they start to get a little bit fractious. We all know, if you have or have had a toddler, you know what I mean, when they start to get a little bit whingy and it's the end of the day and there's, they're either having a great time or it's a total meltdown, you know, they're just really not stable anymore, but you also know that it's not quite bedtime, then actually going ahead to the bathroom, just taking them away from the busyness of the day, the stimulation of, you know, maybe it's playing with toys or playing outside or TV or whatever they might be doing, going, right, I'm going to stop now, I'm going to start the bedtime routine, going to the bathroom, weirdly enough, no matter how hyped up some little ones will get in the bath, going to the bathroom is a really nice like pattern interrupt, and it takes them away from that craziness to we're doing this now. And it's amazing how much a fractious toddler can calm when they go in the bath. They might play and splash, or maybe they're siblings, and like mine used to bath together because they're quite close in age, and they might play and splash and have a great old time, and that's okay. But ultimately they're in a calmer state than if you kept them going and tried to keep them going, you know, downstairs or playing or what have you, or outside, if the weather's good. So it's a good calming trigger and a good start to a bedtime routine. So do your bathroom stuff, be that what, a wash or a, you know, it might be a massage, it could be a nappy change, and it could be a kick around for a baby, kick around with no clothes on for a bit. That's just, they love that. And it may involve teeth. And then go from bathroom to the room they're going to sleep in. So only have 2 rooms in your bedtime routine. Once you come away from the stimulation of the day, you want to go for bathroom and then the bedroom, and nowhere else. Why? Because it can send mixed messages. Oh, we're starting the bedtime routine. Oh, now we're back downstairs again. Oh, I'm going to have my milk. My parents are watching the telly. And my siblings are running around. Or, you know, it's just too chaotic. It needs to be really simple and clean cut. Say goodnight to everyone. Bathroom, bedroom. And especially once you get to the bedroom stage, you really want that to be one-on-one time. I know that can be difficult if you're on your own and juggling other children. Just see what you can set up to accommodate that. But the settling process is best done with just one parent. Sometimes, especially with first-time parents where there's just one child and they are your world, then, you know, both parents want to do it all, and actually it can create more stimulation for a baby. So it's better to maybe take turns. Great to take turns and say goodnight to one and then do one-on-one with the other. Or maybe a breastfeeding mum does the first part and does the breastfeeding part and then hands over to dad, and then dad does the next part of the settling, and that can be a really good strategy as well. So you're in the bedroom, and the other main tip, because there are lots of nuances and variations that I would recommend for different people in different scenarios, because we're talking about little human beings here and they are all different, and what works for one is not going to work for another. But on a more general scale, I would highly recommend that your bedtime routine, if there is a milk feed required at this point, that's fine. Have the milk, but include one step to your bedtime routine after the milk. Now, whether that is a book, it could start off as a very baby book, you know, picture book or a touchy book, feely book, you know, those sensory ones. It could evolve, or it could be a poem. It could then evolve into more of a bedtime story as they grow. If it's not a book, it could just be a lullaby. But I quite like not the stimulation, that's the wrong word. I quite like the visual, because it just keeps them awake enough. They're sleepy, they're ready for sleep, but it just gives them a focal point. A lullaby might, you know, sing them to sleep, and that's not the objective. Or they might just stare off into space, or they might look at something else and get distracted. So having a focal point is quite handy, which is why books are good. Or if you are going to do a lullaby, maybe you could have a picture card or just something they look at. One step that goes between the milk and the going down to sleep. And this is great to practice early on, just to disconnect the two. Milk can get them sleepy, and that's okay. Being sleepy is fine. But what we don't really want to do is habitually, night after night after night, use milk to completely put them to sleep. If it happens occasionally, don't panic, it's okay. you can get over this, but what we don't want to do is to actually make it a sleep onset association that the little one is then has a belief that they require it, and that's what then happens over time, is they believe they need it in order to get to sleep. You and I know they don't, but they believe they do, and then that can become a little bit more difficult to shift. Plus, whenever they wake in the night, they're going to be looking for it as well. They're going to be seeking that means of getting back to sleep. So that's another thing we want to try to avoid. So just having that one routine step, and like I said, it's fine if they have their milk and they're all nice and sleepy, and maybe they're even nodding off a bit, but just a little streak, rouse them enough, do your song or your little story, and then down to sleep. And again, it's okay if they're sleepy. We just don't really want them to be asleep completely. Okay, so I'm going to come on to the more detail a little bit on that whole self-settling topic in a minute, because I want to try and get rid of a few myths and help you guys with actual usable techniques that you can actually encourage better sleep from your little one. But before I do, because again, this is something that without this being in check, the rest's going to be impossible. Let's say you've got your environment, that's all good. You've got your routine, that's all going really nicely. And routine really creates rhythmicity. So if you're somebody, some people love routine and they just like, I need routine. Other people find it really restrictive and they don't like the word, and it makes them think that they're going to be tied in some way and have no freedom. That's not true, actually. Routine can bring about a lot more freedom and predictability. However, if you're somebody who does wince at the idea of routine, just think of it more as rhythms. That's what your baby needs. They need rhythmicity, and they follow these rhythms and cues. It's wake, it's sleep, it's dark, it's light, it's feed, it's play. You know, they're all rhythms that take them through the day, and they are vital for the body clock, for you and your baby. So that's what we really mean when we say routine, especially for the little ones, little babies. But the thing I wanted to say to you that I think is highly overlooked, highly misunderstood, and this might be your big takeaway today, is overtiredness. It's actually the root of most sleep problems, and we usually try, I have worked with thousands of families, and I don't think there's been a case ever where overtiredness wasn't a part of the problem somewhere. And if there was ever a case where that wasn't a part of it, then it was purely down to the settling. So it's rare. Normally there is some degree of overtiredness. Why? Because most of the time, as parents, we don't know how much sleep our little ones really need. And we can follow all the guidelines. I've got a beautiful chart that gives you really good guidelines, but they don't always do exactly what the guidelines say. And then we wonder, well, what if my child's different? And well, yes, but how about this situation? And my scenario is, again, unique to the individual. And overtiredness can take on various different forms as well. Some will just crash and burn when they're overtired. Others will become wired. Some won't show any signs at all, and you just actually get the fallout, which is bedtime battles, wakeful nights, early rising, and you don't really see it, and you can't see why. Some parents will find they're real sticklers for how much sleep they need and how much time they should be awake between sleeps. And whilst that's great information to be armed with, absolutely, that's useful information to be armed with, you can get so hung up on it that you end up completely confused anyway. Or you're pinning everything on the wakeful window. Okay, my little one should be awake for no more than 2 hours, so every 2 hours I need to make sure I get them down again. But what they don't do is then do the calculation of, right, yes, but that nap should have been about 1 hour and a quarter and it was only half an hour, so we can't go the whole wakeful window before the next sleep. So it's not as black and white as just following a chart. It's much more complex than that, which is where guidance like ours comes in. But the number one thing you can do is avoid letting your little one become overtired. So having an idea of ballpark of how much sleep does your little one need at night, ideally, what's the kind of rough recommended amount or ballpark, when they wake, how much time is the best amount for them to be awake before they go for another sleep, Again, it's a ballpark, because if they haven't slept well before that wakeful time, it's going to need to be reduced. And so the maximum, what's the maximum? And how many sleeps a day, so how many naps a day ought they have, and how long should they be, roughly. And if you know this as a ballpark, this is why we share these kind of charts and things to give you a ballpark and a guideline. It's like, okay, this is what we're aiming for. This is roughly what a child of this age would need. We can then tweak it and adapt it to make it just right for your child individually. Now, the way you'll know if your child is overtired, not only fractiousness, exhaustion, clinginess, and the obvious signs, but also if they don't really show those signs, or if you're not sure, if they are way off those ballpark targets, if you're like, no, we're not even close to this, we're getting, maybe your aim is 10 hours sleep and you're getting like 8 or 7, maybe you ought to be getting 3 naps a day in around 3 hours, and you're like, gosh, we're lucky if we get an hour and a half. Like they are really big clues that your little one is overtired. And overtiredness often leads to difficulty, believe it or not, apart from the occasional zonk out, difficulty settling at bedtime battles, restless nights, waking up more frequently, just unable to settle and disturbed sleep, light sleep, just not getting into that nourishing deep sleep, and early waking. And the number one is early waking. 5 a.m. wake ups. If you get woken up every morning at 5 a.m, I would pretty much guarantee your little one is overtired. And so we want to look at why. How? Is bedtime too late? Are we getting enough day sleep? What's causing it? How can we fix that up? So overtiredness is key. Now, I want to give you 2 more really important tips before I conclude on this talk today. And bear in mind, this is going to be saved on We Are Fit&Well's IGTV. So it's going to be, you can watch this back on IGTV and also on their YouTube channel. So this will be, you can watch this over and over again. If you need to go back and go, what was that tip? So you can watch this over and over again. Self-settling. This is such a hot topic. I prefer the term self-settling to self-soothing, because self-settling is specific to sleep. And the reason it's important at the right time for your child to develop those skills is because it's in our ability to get ourselves off to sleep that helps us get ourselves back to sleep when we wake in the night. And we all wake in the night. We're supposed to. We need to. It's how we work as human beings. But you and I, when we wake, it could be a proper wake up. It could be a very subtle wake up. And you might actually sleep for 8 hours and think, oh, I didn't wake up at all. You did. You just didn't know it, because it was so semi-conscious, so subconscious that you just went back off into the next sleep cycle, didn't even really notice it. But with babies and young ones, if they haven't yet completely got the art of getting to sleep without something doing it all for them, then they can't get themselves back to sleep. So when they go into light sleep and they kind of find themselves awake, they're like, I don't know what to do. I don't know what to do. I need some help. I need something to come and fix me. So I very much liken this to teaching like potty training, or riding a bike. They're my favourite 2 examples. Neither of those things, potty training or bike riding, neither of those things do we just expect our child to do. We don't just go, that's it, no more nappies, use the toilet now, and leave them to it. Of course we don't. That's the equivalent of leaving a baby to cry. And if you just leave a baby to cry, they're not going to develop any skill. They're just going to think no one's ever coming. They're just going to think they're ignored, and eventually they might nod off, but that's not really skill. That's actually just giving up hope. No one's coming. Well, that's not an acceptable, or what's the word I'm looking for? Not acceptable. It's not a constructive way to guide and teach this one. And the same with riding a bike. You don't just put them on a bike with 2 wheels and go, right, off you go. You've got this now. No, they need help. They need guidance. They need showing the way. That would be stabilizers at first, and then holding the bike up and running alongside them. With potty training, you need to show them how. You need to demonstrate. You need to guide them, encourage them. So it's the same with learning to settle to sleep. And if you, of course, when they're tiny baby, they need a lot of help, okay? I'm not suggesting this from day one. But once they get sort of between 4 and 6 months and you've worked on some practice, and little practices go a long way, by the way. We're not expecting them to master it, just little practices, little tastes of, oh, this is where I sleep. Oh, I don't like it. Oh, but okay, let's have another try here. Oh, but I want some help. You know, that's okay. All that is okay. But if you're just rocking them to sleep every single time, or pacing them to sleep every single time, or putting the dummy in over and over and over again, or feeding them to sleep, if something or someone is required to get baby to sleep all the time for months on end, and I'm talking once you go beyond 4 to 6 months, beyond 6 months, if that's still the case, then they're not actually getting the opportunity just to practice and feel those sensations of falling to sleep. Now, I don't mean leaving them alone, letting them cry it out, absolutely not. I mean responsively helping them, guiding them, showing them, reassuring them, encouraging them, giving them the soothing reassurance that they need and the response they need from you, but in the way that is also conducive to helping them to actually get good at it, to practice. And that's how you get a really good sleeper, because it's in that ability to settle to sleep. It's called sleep onset. And in being able to master that sleep onset is how they then get to sleep, they get into deep sleep, more nourishing sleep, they sleep soundly. And when a little one does truly put themselves to sleep, number one, it takes more than 5 minutes to go from eyes open to closed. And number two, they'll be doing that happily. They won't just be crying and zonking. They'll be quite happily, you know, maybe a little chat to themselves, and they might seek a little bit of reassurance here and there, but they'll happily go off to sleep. And that's what we teach, and it's so constructive to overall family health and well-being, because when you're sleep deprived, usually you're irrational, you can be moody, your mental well-being can be seriously impacted through poor sleep. This is why they use it as a form of torture in some countries, because it will break you. And that's not to mention the physical impacts of poor sleep and the medical conditions that come from poor sleep. You know, we now have studies that show that it causes high blood pressure, heart disease, diabetes, depression. No, sorry, there was another physical one. I can't remember what I was thinking of now. So many illnesses that later in life can come from just not being able to sleep very well. And when I speak to adults about sleep, we often discover that it's that they never actually really learnt. They never really probably learned how to sleep well, and it's still affecting them in adulthood. And that's when the serious medical problems come about. So let's give our kiddos the absolute best start. Their brain development depends upon healthy sleep. The neural pathways and the connections, all the memory consolidation and everything that their little brains are doing, which is a lot when they're little, requires healthy sleep and deep sleep to do its work. So yeah, that's why it's important. And the last thing I'm going to say, and you know this and you've heard this before, but do you do it? Because common sense isn't always common practice, and that's be consistent. You've got to be consistent, and actually little ones will feel safer, more secure, and they will feel more trust in you if they can count on you and rely upon you to consistently respond to them. So particularly when you get to the toddler stages and young children, sometimes what they want and what they need are two different things, and they might be pushing you because of a want that they've got, but you might know that it's not actually what they need, and they are different. And if you can stand your ground, be consistent, you're responding and you're loving. So long as you're doing those two things, you're in safe territory. It just might not be exactly what they want. And so they might have a little tantrum about it, that's okay. But once they realise you mean what you say, once they realise that if they change their behaviour, you don't change your behaviour, then that's you giving them a steady hand. That's you being a rock. That's you being solid. They can rely on you. They can count on you. And that creates a very safe, secure attachment and a healthy, well-rounded individual. If you waver, if you break, if you wave like the wind, if 1 minute it's yes, 1 minute it's no, or you're going no, oh okay then, if you're always chopping and changing your response, they don't know where they stand. They don't really know if they can trust you or rely on you, because you're showing you don't always mean what you say. And those are inadvertently the messages that you could be sending your baby or child. So think of it like that, and I think it really helps to, that's a really great way, I believe, it helps to then stay consistent, because you think, no, I'm actually doing them a disservice by giving in to what they want when I know it's not what they need. And we are faced with this as parents throughout parenting, not just in sleep. And you know, I'm not going to deny still being tested with an 8 and 10-year-old in so many different ways. So I think it's a really important message for us to remember that all around with parenting generally. But yeah, it rings true with sleep. Very, very true. Be consistent. Follow the 5 steps that I've given you today, and I wish you all wonderful, blissful, sleep-filled nights. So I hope you found this talk useful. Don't forget, Fit&Well.com have got this covered everywhere. So it's going to be on here. We are Fit&Well IGTV. It's going to be on the YouTube channel as well, so you can rewatch this over and over again if you didn't catch it live. And I hope this has been really useful, and I look forward to hearing more from you guys. If you have any questions, I'm sure you can send them in, or you're welcome to pop them over to me at Sleep Nanny Official. I'll be glad to help you out. Have a great day. Bye.